Hey guys, welcome back to the next part of our series. Today we're going to continue with the walk cycle, so let's get to it. This is where we left off. This is the very nice walk cycle that we have. And as you can see, he looks very relaxed. He looks like he's enjoying a nice stroll on the park or something. So now it's time that we add a little bit more, oomph to the whole thing, right? Like we want this guy to look a little bit nicer. So I'm going to start with a little bit of squash and stretch. So if we take a look at the animation keyframes here, you're going to see that if we select all of the characters here, we don't have an animation on every single frame, which is fine. We don't want the guy to be squashing and stretching every single time. So I'm going to grab this curve right here, and I'm just going to make sure that we have the same sort of like squash and stretch everywhere. So I'm middle mouse clicking every single keyframe that we have, which is 30 keyframes. See the distance there? Remember we talked about this one in the last video where the distance in between frames might not be the same, but it's completely fine because we're going to get a nice effect. Now I made a horrible mistake here. I was keyframing everything and pretty much losing the whole animation. Don't do that. So I'm just going to grab this guy right here, and that's S, 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 and S. And let's grab something that doesn't really move. For instance, like, I don't know, this curve right here, or like a knee, right? So if we grab the knee and we grab this guy, or no, let's just grab the crystal. So let's go here. Okay, so on the down position, we're going to have a little bit of animation here. So we're going to push this squash down. Now, of course, this is a stylized walk, right? This is something that you would see on like a cartoon or like a very kids-friendly movie, not something you would see on the next Call of Duty. So just keep in mind that depending on how you animate your walk, that's how the whole character is going to look. And we always want things to look as nice as possible. So on the up as well, so let's go for the up position, which is this one. We want a little bit of stretch because he's using all of his force to create this sort of bloop. And then we go contact, which is this one. And then on the down position, we're going to go down again. And then finally on the up position, which should be, where is it? This one right here. We're going to have another up position. And then back to normal on the contact. And that, as you can see, my friends, will give us this nice bounce. Now, you can see here that since we are not cutting the animation exactly at frame 30, we're not getting the cycle that we're going for, which is completely normal. And you might also be able to tell, hopefully the frame rate on the video is good enough, you might be able to tell that there's a little bit of a stop here. And the reason why we have a little bit of a stop is because frame 30 and frame 1 are the exact same frame. So we're playing the same drawing or the same animation twice. We don't want that. So even though this is a 30 frame cycle, we're going to ignore the last frame. We're just going to play from frame 29. That way, the animation is going to look a lot nicer. There we go. Look at that nice bounce up and down, up and down. Make sure that you're running at 34 FPS. That's very important. And we're in a very good position. Now we can start thinking about some other things that might help us with the, with the animation. So for instance, we can clean up a little bit of the poses. Let's say, for instance, right here. Well, let's go in order. Let's go from first contact here. And let's see how this looks. So as you can see, we have this. And the only issue with this is the fact that it takes 5 frames for the feet to fully like go into the floor. And that's not something that usually happens, right? Like usually we press our feet towards the ground very, very fast. So here's where animation curves come into place, remember? So what is the curve that's making this thing move? Of course, X, right? Rotation in X. So if we go into the graph editor and we go rotate X, we're going to be able to see the transition that we have here on the rotation. See how we start with a very like smooth curve and then we go here? So this is where we want to end, but we can make this go a little bit faster if we move the curve like this. So now, instead of waiting until the very end, we very quickly flatten the foot and then the foot just remains static, which is what we want. Let's go to the other foot, for instance, on this one, the other foot, sorry. So on this foot, same thing, we check the rotation on X and we can see that we want to go from here all the way through here. Now, in this case, for this particular curve, we do need to break the tangent because otherwise it's not going to let us move this nicely. So I'm going to break the tangent here. Let me make the outliner a little bit smaller. There we go. So I'm going to break the tangent. I'm going to push this tangent up. So what that's going to make now, it's that the feet is going to land a little bit sooner. Instead of landing all the way into frame 19, it's going to land a little bit sooner and it's going to look a little bit snappier. The animation as a whole is going to look snappier. Now, here's where things are going to start, or where we're going to start having a little bit of an issue. In frame 30, we want to make sure that this frame right here, or the interpolation of the curves, we want to make sure that all the curves have the exact same cycle, right? And unfortunately, if we visualize infinity here, so view infinity, you're going to see that we get this break. Now, the only thing I want you to make sure is that this break looks as natural as possible. So I'm going to go to frame 1, copy my animation here, and then middle mouse to frame 30 and copy the animation as well. And I want to make sure that the animation looks cool so that when we create the whole thing here, or when we increase the range, we are totally sure that the foot is falling flat. See that? So it's a very, very small, what's the word, detail that we can add, but it definitely makes it feel like he's landing a little bit nicer, right? Like it definitely feels like the foot is landing and rolling in a very nice way. And we can do the same thing here with the foot roll. So let's go one by one. So if we go back to our animations, from our passing position, we get this, and then we can add, for instance, here on the passing position, on the up position, sorry, we could add a little bit of a toe roll to the front, like just a little bit, and that's gonna create like a little bit of a flip, and then we just land. So again, just a very subtle detail that's gonna add a little bit more life to the whole animation. Same thing here. Let's go to this position right here, and let's add just a little bit of a flip here on the toe. So now the toe rolls to the back like that, like if it's pushing the ground, and then it goes to the front, it curls up a little bit, and then when it lands flat, and the foot lands very, very fast there, creating this sort of effect. And look at that very nice bouncy guy going through the park. So that's pretty much what we normally do. Now remember, we have a 30 frame cycle, and we close our cycle at 29 frames because we don't want the last one to repeat. So one thing we can do is, if we want to say, hey, this animation is going to last, I don't know, 10 seconds, and we're running at 34 frames per second, then of course we multiply 30. Let's say we want to do like 10 cycles, right? So 30 times 10, it's of course 300. I don't even need a calculator for that. Come on. I'm not that bad at math. I know that if I go to 299, we're going to be at the last frame before we hit the contact position. And technically, if we play this, we shouldn't see a cut because the animation is just going to loop itself, and we're looping at the exact frame that we need to loop. So let's take a look at that. And no, we do see the loop. That's weird. Another thing we can do is just grab all of the curves here, and let's see the point where it stops. Let's go all the way here. Maybe it offsets itself a little bit, so it's here at frame 305. So if I'm right about here and we just keep running the animation, it will just come back to the beginning without skipping a beat. Maybe one less frame, 304. And again, if we go here and we play, we should see a seamless transition, which I think we have. Now, the big question, how do we make this guy walk like on the park and stuff? This technique that I'm about to show you only works for characters that are either in just like a plain cycle, like your character's just walking down the street and you're not gonna do any other sort of animation on the lower parts of the character, or for extras like secondary characters, tertiary characters that are just on the background walking from one side to the other. If you were to do like a normal, like the main character, or like a secondary character that's on screen or something, in those cases, you pretty much have to manually animate the whole walk cycle. We're gonna do one of those exercises next, and yeah, unfortunately, it's a little bit time consuming, but I'm gonna show you a quick way in which we can do the whole cycle. So here's the deal. If this is just a tertiary character and we just want him to walk like from one point to the other, one very easy way to do is, of course, to animate this main this main curve right here. As you can see, well, this one we can't really animate it because it's the main curve. But what we can do is we can attach this curve to something called a motion trail. So I'm gonna go in here to create curve tools. I'm gonna create an EP curve, and let's just create like a random road here. Like maybe he's going up and down a hill or something. And actually, let me show you the whole thing. So I'm gonna go here into poly modeling. Let's create like a grid. And let's say he starts at one of the corners of the grid, so right about there. I'm gonna grab a couple of faces here, let's say like 3 or 4. I'm gonna press V, as in V for I don't know, B. And I'm just gonna press V and middle mouse and drag. And this is gonna allow me to create this sort of like heels right here. I'm gonna then say mesh smooth to make sure that this is a little bit smoother. There we go. And now I'm gonna select this guy. Let's delete history, first transformation, clean it up. I'm gonna select my my live surface here. Actually, let me flatten it just a little bit. There we go. So on a little bit of elevation, not that much. Make sure that the character is standing right there. Perfect. So I'm gonna select this live surface right here. First transformation, live surface. Now I'm gonna go into create curve tools. I'm gonna create an EP curve, and let's create like a little path for our character that he's gonna follow. The what's the word? The path tool, or the live surface, is gonna make sure that this curve is now pretty much following all the elevations of my character. Now the only problem here is that the curve might have the vertices at different like positions. So to get the best result, we want to rebuild this surface. So I'm gonna go into curves, rebuild. I'm gonna say I want 12 spans. That's fine. Rebuild. So now, as you can see, all of the elements are at the same length. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab the main curve here, this one, and then this guy right here, the other curve. Actually, I'm gonna grab this guy, and I'm gonna press C and move it to this curve right here. There we go. So by pressing C and middle mouse dragging, we can snap him to the beginning of the curve, which is what we want. And now I'm gonna select this curve, the triangular curve, this guy right here. And if we go to the animation options, we're gonna be able to go into the key, and it's no, sorry, where is it? Constrain motion paths, and I'm gonna attach to motion path. Now on the options here, it's very important that we utilize the options. I'm gonna say that I want to use the time slider in this case because I'm going from frame 1 to a frame 300. So it's gonna take him 300 frames to go from here all the way to the very end. And this is very important, which axis I want this guy to follow. And I want his front axis, as you can see, his front axis is C. So I'm gonna say C. And then I'm gonna say, there we go. And I'm gonna say, I believe inverse up, because if I hit apply here, you're gonna see that the character is backwards and he's gonna be walking backwards. So I need to do inverse front and hit apply because his tracking, or his vector right now, is C negative. Now, if I hit play, look what happens. This guy is going to advance through the whole thing in 300 frames. Now, of course, what are we seeing here? Well, the distance that he needs to run through is way too much for, or it's way too fast for the amount of elements that he has. And he also has this sort of a slow in and slow out. That's very, very common. The first thing we're going to do is I'm going to change this. So instead of taking this guy, I'm just going to select both of them in my graph editor. This is the main curve, and you can see here we have the motion path. I'm just going to make it linear, both of them, so that the transition is always linear and he's just like walking at the same speed. And then, of course, we need way more frames. So let's say 1,000 frames. Just gonna select this guy right here and say 1,000. And that way we change the animation. And now here, that's the only like complicated part of this process. We need to make sure that we find the best possible time for the character in order for him to look like he's not sliding, right? Like we don't want him to slide. Right here, I think we're very, very close. As you can see, it's really, really close. Like he slides very, very little. So that means that the best speed for this distance is really close. Let's see if we can find the exact one. Let's try 1200. Because the other thing we don't want is we don't want him to look like he's dragging, right? Like he's walking on like sand or something. So if we hit play here, yeah, I think that looks pretty close to like a normal walk. Like the position where he lands his feet is pretty much the position where he raises it. So we're in a very good position there. Let's grab this guy. Oh, stop the animation. Grab this guy. Oh, let's smooth it out and see if that helps. Because of course, one of the problems is that this curve is not smooth enough for the whole thing. We could try rebuilding it again. Let me see if that works. Let's go to curves. I'm gonna say rebuild. Let's say instead of 12, let's do 24. And now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna select this guy again. I'm gonna make it live. Select the curve. I'm gonna say mesh conform. Conform. Or curves conform. Do we have a conform? I don't think we have one. Yeah, I was trying to see if we could just snap it in a better way, but no, it doesn't seem like it. But yeah, as you can see, like this is it. I'm gonna press Alt-1 to turn this off, and we have this very cute little guy like just walking down the road. So again, if you need to do any sort of short, or you want to tell a story and the character is just gonna be walking in the background or just traveling or something, this is a perfectly valid way to just animate a walk cycle, and you just follow the character throughout the walk cycle in this way. Of course, if you want to, and if we had like arms and face, we could add expressions and different movements to the arms, and as long as the feet are just moving in the same speed, we should be completely fine. So that's it for this exercise, guys. Make sure to try and finish it all the way up to this point, because on the next exercise, we're gonna combine the walk cycle and we're gonna add a little bit of a jump. So we're gonna transition from a walk cycle into a jump, back into a walk cycle. I'm gonna show you how to cheat the process a little bit so that it's quite a bit faster, so that we don't have to do everything from the very beginning. So hang on tight, and I'll see you back on the next one. Bye-bye.